Welcome to the Field Dynamics podcast. We're here to facilitate inspiring dialogues about the nature of consciousness across disciplines, communities, and practitioners, all with a holistic perspective.
From energy healing to somatic therapies, from neuroscience to meditation, we believe the most interesting things happen at the boundaries of disciplines.
I'm Christabel.
And I'm Keith.
Thanks for joining us today and enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome. Today we're talking about the EHT-100, which is our 100-hour energy healing training program. It's the flagship training of Field Dynamics, which has been running for several years now. And Keith and I really wanted to take the opportunity to share a little bit more background information about the course. That is in addition to the guide and the webpage, which can be found online. And our intention here is really just to be in conversation to share a little bit more background about the training, the experience that's been shared with us by our trainees, and just to share some personal insights really about the formation of Field Dynamics and why we run this training, what it involves. So Keith, perhaps a great place to open is a little bit of background about Field Dynamics and what we do.
Yeah, so Field Dynamics was founded with this idea that energy healing wasn't being represented well in terms of breadth and depth. So Field Dynamics is an attempt and a realized version of energy healing in a contemporary fashion, aligned with modern science. And it kind of exemplifies what's possible with this format. And so Field Dynamics was really founded with that in mind. And thus far, in the number of years we've been functioning, we found that we really have created a structure, an experience, a training for people to understand energy healing in great depth and to reap the benefits in their life.
So one of the things we say is Field Dynamics is setting the standard in contemporary energy healing. And as you mentioned, that really talks to our desire to specialize in professional trainings, workshops, and one-to-one sessions, and that we really embrace this sense of non-dogmatic and professional engagement with the subjects of energy healing, which has previously perhaps only been associated with the woo-woo or spiritual development or spiritual awakening, etc. I'd like to, I think it's important to share a little bit more about how we, and you touched on this, how we integrate the science of how and why energy healing works in our trainings. That's really crucial to us, and that we're very universal in our ethos and approach.
Yeah, so we really wanted to have a grounded, very, very accountable, very understandable model so people could understand the connection between science and energy healing, science and even spirituality. So we present a multidimensional model around what the construction of the energy field is, and it clearly aligns with contemporary science, whether you look at cutting-edge brain research, cutting-edge physics, and people tend to give us the feedback that they really appreciate and have never seen before such clarity around wedding these two different spheres.
So we're offering a very comprehensive training. We think of it as a world-class industry standard for trainings in terms of its depth and breadth. Perhaps it might be helpful here to just talk a little bit more about the structure of the training and the course content briefly. So just what exactly is the EHT-100 and how is it that people participate?
The training takes place over 6 months. And in those 6 months, we have 8 intensive weekends that we call modules. Each of the modules has a particular subject matter that we go into. So for instance, we start off with foundations, then we move to multidimensional anatomy, where we're looking at the chakra system a lot and energy blocks. We move to the kundalini system and channels, like the meridians from Chinese medicine and acupuncture. And then we start looking into how the body is connected to the field more deeply. We call it somatics and biodynamics and trauma healing. And we go into, instead of, let's say, the anatomical orientation to studying the energy field, we get into how it relates to your relationships in life, like ancestry and your personality and even transpersonal domains, as we call them. So the weekends are this format in which each of the weekends is intensive, a lot of transformation, a lot of learning. It goes progressively deeper, meaning you learn how to use tools and you understand the format to keep experiencing the depth of transformation at these different levels. So that's a key component. 6 months, 8 modules. And then in the meantime, we give out very structured protocols for self-practice in between. And another key highlight to the training is people working with one another, which is a huge benefit, a huge feature of the training for many people, in that you get together with the new person that you're assigned with each of the modules, and in that 3-week gap between one intensive weekend to the next, you do a partner trade with somebody else. You give and receive, and that's a really critical part of learning. Mind you, all of this is on the back of a 200-page manual, really comprehensive manual that we use for the study in each weekend.
Okay, so we're looking at a weekend intensive format. We're live and online. We are actually running the program remotely through Zoom, which has proven to be incredibly effective. They have self-practice protocols. Participants are given protocols for their own self-practice between modules. There's partner trades between participants, so it's very community building. And you're running energy healing for yourself really from day one or day two. And you mentioned the 200-page manual there, which is a really great addition for the in-between module study for people to really help familiarize themselves with the topics that are presented. I think what's really crucial to get to here is what you just shared, that this training is actually designed, that we've curated it carefully to connect you progressively to deeper levels of the system. So we're moving through the subtle anatomy, and as we do so, participants are able to gain clarity about their energy blocks and related issues. So insights emerge as they discover how these blocks relate to their broader life context. So people may be coming to the training working on issues in intimate relationships, issues with parents, as you say, deep-seated insecurities, self-confidence. There's a myriad of reasons why people might find us. But what we're looking at here is how to work with the multidimensional anatomy, the central channel, the chakras, etc., and using this holistic process of energy healing to basically, through direct experience in the group sets, the powerful group sets that we operate, to really understand and get to know the self more.
Yeah, I think that's a really good linkage point here. What we're finding is it's called an energy healing training, but it's really a lot more. The umbrella is a lot more. One thing we could say is we start to really understand and investigate the body-mind connection. So you might say, okay, well, I'm really well aware that I have an anxiety issue, right? And that's often where people stop, or maybe they take a next step and they say, well, I understand I had certain experiences in life, certain conditioning that took place, certain experiences that anxiety might be predicated upon. But what is it like to take that information and then start to say, well, hold on, that lives in a particular place in my body. And that also lives in a particular place in my energy field. And I can learn to map, as we often call it, to identify and map where this construction of a particular issue is in our life and how that actually sits in our body, in our field, in our various levels of anatomy, how to identify it, and then how to help it to move, how to help it to change. And what we find is that people are really empowered. People are really changed in their relationship to their experience of life through the transformation of their issues, because as we discharge the energetic blocks, whether it be an excess charge or a deficient charge, as we shift those, people are able to be with the flow of life more. So that's one of the primary things that you'll notice in the feedback of people who've done this course for 6 months or a year, if they've done the advanced training as well, is a really common thing. And it sounds in some ways mundane, is that they simply are more at peace with life. That life seems to just come to them more easily, and that they're okay with harmonizing with what is versus fighting against that. And that has to do with this clarifying of the energy field. This is classically what's being done in energy work. You're clarifying your field, and we're teaching people how to do that in a very, very comprehensive manner, in a very competent manner, with very potent tools at their disposal.
Absolutely. So bringing this around to, we're often asked, who is this for? Who is it that's participating in these trainings? Who's attracted? And I think it's helpful to point out that not only is it people who are interested, who are familiar with energy healing work and are interested in learning a comprehensive and powerful energy healing modality, it's also for those who may not yet be overly familiar with the practice of energy healing, so newcomers. who are just being drawn by, say, one of those instances you've just outlined. They're being drawn by some suffering, some pain, some discomfort in their life into looking for more, into just looking around a little bit for something to engage them and work with some of this suffering, really. I think it's also important to flag that we're often working with people who have existing practices. So they may be a meditator, they may be a yogi, they may have studied shamanism, or even Reiki, as a less comprehensive form of energy healing, let's say. And they're finding that they're drawn to integrating energy work or subtle energy awareness into their existing practices. Sometimes we also find that simply the seeker, the archetype of the seeker, is who's finding us. So people committed to self-realization and those experiencing transformations in consciousness. And finally, the thing that I'm perhaps most excited about as one of my great passions is bringing energy healing to an everyday wider audience is professionals, people who are life coaches, therapists, psychotherapists, doctors even, who are interested in expanding their services. They've realized that there is this other awareness, this awareness of subtle energy. This maybe they're having experiences with clients where they're finding that their extrasensory perception or their intuition is starting to kick in a way they don't know how to deal with, or actually they're finding they've reached a dead end with some of their services, some of their practices, and not quite helping their clients unravel in the way that they'd like to. And so we have a number of life coaches and therapists working with us in these trainings in terms of participating, which I find very exciting.
Yeah, it has been amazing to see the different backgrounds of people who've come in, doctors, like you said, therapists, people who have been studying and practicing medicine or various forms of therapy for a long time. But that includes as well people who are totally newcomers to the world of healing and therapy altogether. And everybody hits the ground running, really. It's pretty amazing to see the kind of the developmental arc over those 6 months. And it's important to mention that's why this is 6 months. We have found that this is a sweet spot for getting people to be supported in a structure, to have that framework of development that really helps them to develop this skill set, because it's something that does take some building for most people. Now, some people are really sensitive already, and they have a lot of energetic sensing, and they understand how to do this kind of practice, and they're really off to the races right away. But for many people, this is something to deepen into and to familiarize themselves with. So one of the things we do, which is really important, is we ground everything in meditation and in present moment awareness, right? We say the core skills for energy work are presence and tracking. And these are the two primary skills. Presence being, I can be here now as it is, quiet mind, that kind of thing. Everybody's familiar with this. And then there's tracking, which is noticing what's changing within that stillness. And so these two primary skills are really well developed over that time. And as you mentioned, Christabel, an important point is to give a background. I came into healing work from a background really of like enlightenment, awakening, seeking work. That was my drive, was this thing about what's the nature of consciousness. And healing work was a later development in my interest. And we see and understand that energy healing is as applicable to people who are seekers, who are interested in the foundational understandings of consciousness, as it is for that word healing. And sometimes this is not well understood. And I think it's a major untapped resource for people out there who are identified as seekers, because its potency to transform consciousness and reveal its nature.
And this is interesting, because this is where we fall into the idea that we hear so often in our feedback. This is more than just an energy healing training, whether it's learning about energetic hygiene, getting more grounded in the body, clarifying energetic boundaries, and understanding the energetic aspect or element, as it were, of all communication. It's just really valuable experience for people, and particularly people are highlighting the bonds with fellow classmates, that community element that's developing. So I just want to bring it round again, back to the format. The training, as we've said, is comprised of 8 intensive modules. They each take place over a single weekend. During the module, we're learning new energy tools, energy anatomy, conceptual frameworks for the healing process, fusing information from the Eastern and Western traditions. And most importantly, we're participating in group energy healing sessions. So that's an opportunity for participants to experience the tools directly, which is helping strike this great balance between learning and experience. I wonder if you could just share a little bit more for our listeners here of the highlights of the training.
You said the word share in context of how the weekends go, and it made me think of what's the experience like. People wonder if you're listening to this, so what am I getting into? Half of the time, basically, we're going over the manual and we're basically looking at new tools, as mentioned, concepts, frameworks to understand this stuff. And half of the time, we're experiencing energy work in a group setting, which is very powerful. People don't generally understand. One-on-one, you have an energetic exchange with a practitioner, or one-on-one. It's different when you're in a group. A group amplifies the field very, very significantly. So they're very powerful energy healing sessions. But in the meantime, we're also sharing a lot. There's a lot of group feedback. There's a lot of building rapport, trust, vulnerability between the members. And this is a really, really important part. Many people say this is one of the most critical things for them, is the fact that they can have an experience, because the phenomenology that underlies the experience and energy work is vast. Some people might have memory recall. Some people might have strong emotional responses. Some people are very structural. They're going to feel all kinds of sensations moving through their body all the time. And we take all of our personal experiences, we put them in that public discourse, we share, and we start to learn about how does this work in people's direct experience, which again, everything's grounded in that. It's the most important component to this, not the theoretical, but the experiential.
Absolutely. You mentioned again that that sense of community. I do want to highlight that because it is an online training, and I think that's probably been one of the most surprising things for us. Initially, it was through obligation; it was online due to the COVID crisis, and it's just been such an incredibly successful format for people to come together from all over the world and to share these deep, intimate experiences online with us and online with each other during their partner trades and through the community group. And that's been quite humbling, actually, to witness as a facilitator, just that helping to provide that group energy, that safe space for people to come together. Because I think very often that people are investigating things like this in their lives, and they're not necessarily accompanied by their loved ones. It's not necessarily common that family and friends are pursuing similar interests. So that sense of community, online or not, is just so intrinsic to the experience. And as part of that, I want to say, great friendships are formed. And it's important to highlight here that this is really fun and curious work. Yes, we do trauma healing. Yes, we're looking at some really mind-blowing, in-depth concepts around, embodiment, the personality and relationship, how subtle energy and perception are really working. But this sense of curiosity and, I never cease to be amazed and to learn from each and every session that we engage with. And I know that our participants feel the same. So I think perhaps in closing here, just to think about if there's anything else that feels appropriate or relevant to share about the training and our role as facilitators.
Well, what you just said was inspiring and reminded me of something that actually we often don't mention around the EHT, which is really surprising to me. But it just comes to mind that one thing we really saw as an opportunity in this experience was to have a process that people feel intimate with one another, that there's a personal contact component. We've studied with a lot of different teachers and places and things. There is not a sense of like getting to know the other people in trainings and having that be an ongoing deepening thing. And the EHT community is something where the experience is that people become very familiar with one another over time. And this is, again, the direct experience of this work. The language behind this work it's not a mainstream thing. We know that it's not a common thing. People generally aren't going to learn these things, experience them, and then go talk to their family and just casually talk about it. The language is generally not there for other people. So to have others that you can relate to, talk to, commune with, and learn from, and share with in a transparent way, in a trusting way, in a vulnerable way, is a really, really big component. In a sense, it reminds me, I feel like we've been successful in creating the experience that we wanted to have years ago. And that to me means a whole lot. And so I say to people all the time, this is my favorite space. This is why I like to do this work. I like to be with people in the space of healing, in the space of, you could say, raising consciousness, up. It's not an up thing. It's an expansion thing. But basically, though, meeting together in the moment for the purpose of change, and change that has awareness behind it. And that to me is the most authentic and engaged way I can relate to other people. And these trainings are a way of facilitating that and being a part of that and learning from that, and being amazed by that. So I'm humbled over and over again by being a part of this training. And yeah, that's where I leave off each and every time when I reflect on it, is that this is the space I want to be at. And this gives me a structure and a system to be able to continually dip into that space of so much presence with other people.
Yeah, really important sentiments, and remind me of a participant that finished at the close of one of our recent trainings, and I spoke to her in the months following, and she was sharing just how much she missed that sense of coming together each weekend, every 3 weeks or so, to come together and have this sacred space where she felt held and supported. And who knows, maybe she'll be joining our EHT-100, which is a subsequent follow-up program for those who are interested in continuing on. I think what you just shared is really crucial. It touched base with obviously an intention we both share as individuals and as practitioners, but also in one of the key values behind field dynamics, which is just highlighting what unites us and not what divides us, and using these principles for personal empowerment, for the empowerment of other, for self-empowerment in other, and doing that in a way that's universal and non-dogmatic in ethos and approach.
Yeah, and that that we like to say the cornerstone of collective healing is self-healing. People are coming in for various reasons. Some people say, "Oh, I really want to do this." We say professional, so a lot of people go, "Oh, you mean like doing this out there in the world?" And the answer is, of course, if that's what you want to do. But we find that the majority of people are doing this for themselves, even if their intention is to do this for other people. The space you've made in yourself is the space you can hold for others. The depth you've gone in yourself is the depth that you can hold for others. So much about this ultimately leads to a non-selfish orientation, a service orientation. But that starts here with us, with you, with the individual. And as you said, empowerment, the tools, the know-how, the conceptual frameworks, the presence. And presence is the thing. Just being here with life as it is, not your energy field, not esoteric things, not mystical things, but just with life as it is. This is a technique, this is a training that deeply empowers one's presence. And we see that in people's feedback. We see that in how people change in the way they speak, hold themselves, are able to share themselves, even in the course of just 6 months.
Well, we truly believe this to be at the forefront of what's possible in terms of energy medicine and healing work. And I think it would be really useful to hear from some of our previous participants who have been kind enough to share their experience a little bit and their thoughts with us about aspects of the training.
So we're going to seg into some interviews with previous participants about this experience of the EHT-100.
Today we have here with us a number of graduates from both our EHT-100 and EHT-200 training courses. So a warm welcome to Danny, Paul, Sally, and Shannon. It's great to have you here with us today.
Let's all start off with what attracted you to the EHT training initially. Where were you in your life at the time? Had you had any previous experience in related fields and or specifically with energy healing?
Hi, I'm Sally. Thanks for having us, Keith and Christabel. Yes, I had some experience with energy work, and it was really exciting, and I was just dying to learn more. And then COVID happened, and my plans got shut down, so I started digging around the internet and quickly found your offerings, and so that is what brought me to field dynamics. So yes, I was very excited about energy work, and was thrilled to find you out there with everything you offer.
Sally, had you had previous experience in other modalities or anything like energy healing before?
I had with the energetic tuning, so using tuning forks to assist in finding areas that needed work, and Reiki. I had worked with Reiki, had not found that to be my avenue of choice. So yeah, those two experiences: energetic tuning with forks and Reiki.
I can jump in. Hey guys, it's Paul speaking. My healing journey has been extensive. In 2004, I began cognitive behavioral therapy as a client. I was being treated for anxiety, and through that, I became very interested in certain questions about what is sadness, what is trauma, what are human emotions, how do we hold on to those things, how do we release those things, what is happiness, and there was a spiritual aspect to it. The counselor at one point did say to me, I feel like he attributed it to some philosophy, but I can't remember what he said. Did you ever think about the perspective that maybe all these struggles that you struggle, you chose these, you came into Earth with those challenges in mind, and perhaps you have a story here to tell. And that just blew my mind. And I've held on to that perspective ever since. That the struggles that we go through and the challenges we face are building us and are making us better. And there is a way to grow and to develop and to turn those into positive things. So after many years of dabbling in mindfulness and a little bit of meditation, I got into energy healing and I found field dynamics. And I've done the first course, the 100 hours, and I've done the 200 hours, and I'm doing great, growing every day.
Hi, thank you for having me. This is Shannon. I'm going to start with my experience in related fields. So I began this whole journey as a yoga teacher, and then moved into being a participant and a staff member at a mystery school, where went through the mystical religious fields, working out through the chakra system over a 20-day experience, which was really fascinating. And then I started to learn Reiki, and I was a Reiki master, and I used that as an avenue into energy healing with clients, as I'm now a psychotherapist. So I'm integrating the field dynamics model with my psychotherapy practice, and that's pretty exciting. I'm enjoying that a lot. And what attracted me to the training was the work I had done with Keith since like 2016, I think it was. And I was noticing these like subtle but profound shifts in my energetic field, in my mind, that psychotherapy just couldn't touch. And so it just went in on a deeper level. And it was just the right time to adjunct my psychotherapy practice with this energy healing module. And it brings everything together in this like complete full circle that to me is like the most well-rounded, comprehensive experience of energy healing through the field dynamics model. So that's it.
Danny, last but certainly not least, we'd love to hear your story.
Thank you. So this is Danny, and I found field dynamics really by going down a rabbit hole over the course of a year. So in early 2021, I was a startup founder and left that role to write fiction, which I had wanted to do for a long time. And in the course of writing a novel, got into meditation and stumbled onto the app Insight Timer, which is where I found field dynamics, and just found that the creative process of writing was bringing up so many fears, so much unworthiness that meditation really helped with.
Generally, there's a bit of a learning curve to starting the practice and getting used to it and sitting as long, or getting used to developing the technique, let's say. I'm wondering how it was like for you guys to kind of deepen into your practice, both in the weekends themselves, as the modules are designed to kind of keep going deeper and deeper into the energy system. And that kind of matches your own personal development, where you're learning to do this practice and getting more confidence in it. So how was that like, the progression through the course for you?
I'll go with that question. I remember starting, and it did take some time to learn to sit with energy, and you could get a little antsy or even a little annoyed, but also at the same time learning just deeply about yourself. And then as the process grew, it's like snowballs into this place where you want to be and you crave to be there. And it's your place to go. Like sometimes if I'm busy with the real world, I just wish that I could be in my energy space. And you learn how to get there very quickly. At least I did. And I can get there in an instant and just recover or recharge in that energetic space that you taught us in the class. So it's really, it came along pretty quickly.
And when I started, I was a bit of a novice. Like I felt I was in the deep end at the first couple modules. I had done meditation before, and I learned to meditate at my local yoga studio. And the finale for that course, we sat for 20 minutes. I think on the first day of field dynamics, we sat for 40. So it was already double what I had ever done. And I finished that session. My body was rotating. My eyes were fluttering. I knew I was in for some heavy work, but again, once you work with the people, you get the routine. And I think for me, a couple things happened where I realized the energy really was flowing, and we were practicing a substantial healing art. And once I got the gist of that, I knew I was on the right track, and I knew lean in.
The beginning process for me was very different because there was like a structure as opposed to Reiki, where it's just like this open-ended experience where it's just like, okay, Reiki on, and then you just see what happens. This was like 5-minute bells, and you're watching the energetic and then noticing the subtle shifts when the vibration changes. And for me, it was like a fun little playground.
If I may just add something, we're talking a lot about energy, and just to clarify it for the listeners, like I never say that I'm an energy healer. I say I work with healing energy. And in this coursework, you talk about how it moves, how it looks, how it feels. It has a color, it has an intent, it has an intelligence, and it actually answers some of those questions of what is healing energy. So it's been very comprehensive in that respect.
That's good to hear. Thanks, Paul. I'm interested as well in touching base, if it's okay with you, a little bit into your personal story. You mentioned at the beginning there that you were being treated for anxiety around the time that you joined the EHT program. And whatever you'd like to share around that subject would be interesting as to how that evolved for you throughout the course, or how that may or may not have changed. If that's something you'd like to share.
Yeah, the treatment for my anxiety and depression was going on for quite some time. I think I may have mentioned at the outset that my first meeting with a psychologist was 2004. So yeah, and I guess the quickest answer is I no longer take medication. So yeah, so when you're training as an energy healer, you're learning how to breathe, how to release stored energy, how to be positive, and how to see yourself as the hero of your story, which are all things that have transformed my life and continue changing my life today.
Thanks, Paul. Based on the feedback we've been getting from many people who've taken the course, we've considered almost renaming the training from an energy healing one to something like a spiritual development or an awakening course or something like that. I'm wondering what you guys think about the scope of the training. We put this term energy healing, and of course that is the primary technique we learned, but what did the training entail for you broader than just that term, energy work or energy healing?
I was interested in healing energy for others, but also for my own spiritual development. So if you change the name, I'd sign up again. No, I'm just kidding. But it really did deepen it was such a surprise. I was so naive coming into the class. And what I learned was I just got this deep connection of looking to myself for spiritual growth and spiritual answers, and going deep within. And your offerings gave me all that and helped me find a home instead of constantly searching everywhere for some answers. I can now look within.
I think on my intake forms, both times, why are you coming to this training? And I said, I just want the energy healing. So I use it with my clients, but really I just wanted it for myself. I really just, and it was about my own healing process after, like Paul, I've suffered from depression and complex trauma for my whole life, and like how to regulate my nervous system. And I'm highly sensitive empath. And this course has really helped me strengthen my own system and strengthen my own energetic field. And so it has been more about me and my personal growth and my awakening process in a stable, embodied, grounded way. So
it's interesting you mentioned that, Shannon. One of the things that we've found is that a lot of people come to the training with a view to learning skill set to use with other people. If they're looking at cross-disciplinary approaches, maybe they're already a life coach, maybe they're already a doctor, or as you said, a talk therapist, and suddenly they find themselves, a month or two into the training and recognize this is going to be really a personal self-journey healing experience. And alongside that, they're going to gain the skills to use with other people. With that in mind, I think it would be interesting to hear from you all what changes you've noticed in yourself as this training progressed and in the aftermath, because some of you have completed it some time ago now. What sort of feedback from those around you, during the training, after the training? What was family, loved ones? Was there any particular changes they noticed in you as well in relationship to this idea of the personal journey?
I think I noticed my own awareness and presence with myself. It's become constant almost. I rarely get sucked out of my awareness, if that makes sense. And so because I am aware, my life has become, I had a normal life prior to this, but it's so peaceful. It doesn't, I just had this huge event happen to me this weekend, an accident on the interstate that could have been insanely devastating. And I just stayed so calm throughout. And that's just one example. But my day-to-day life is just watching and being aware and staying in the moment. And so when you can do that, it pulls away drama or reaction. So that's the biggest thing that I've seen in my life is I can just be aware and watching and then respond and leave out the reaction, just choose which direction I want to take. So I find that amazing.
Changes noticed in myself, my sensing abilities have heightened, but in a grounded way. Whereas before I wouldn't know what I was sensing, now I have a greater ability to understand and have awareness of what is actually happening to me and what information is coming in. And the other thing is I really want to highlight the groundedness of the experience so that I no longer dissociate. I no longer get pulled out of myself in a way when something traumatic happens or, so I get triggered. I don't have to leave. I have the ability to stay in myself. And I think that this training, that's one of the reasons why I'm such a huge fan, is it's about an embodiment and then be able to relate to the world from that place. So that's been a big shift for me.
I noticed a big change in my ability to sense, not just when I was running energy, but also doing other meditations and, feeling the physical sensations of that, noticing emotions or memories come up and being able to kind of map those together. So that was definitely a dramatic change that I hadn't really experienced beforehand. And in my life, I noticed changes around relationships and also my relationship with myself, and especially around kind of a root chakra theme of, do I deserve to be here? And kind of how my interactions with people and the way that I was approaching work projects were all just all kind of came back to this idea of needing to prove myself or defend myself. And so there's been change where it's I'm able to kind of exist without feeling the need to prove myself. And so that's actually really changed my relationships, where I don't feel like I need to convince people of something, or, you know, of my point of view, but can kind of just let things be. So that's been a change that affected the relationships that I have, that I had going in, but I've also seen relationships either change, sort of pass on, and I've had a lot of new relationships that have come out and during the training and even afterwards.
Yeah, and for me, I've been I find myself much calmer. I don't like using the word happy, because to me, well, at least in the North American context, happy suggests a real excitement, and that's not what it is that I'm experiencing. It's more of a peace. It's a very valuable place to be. It's given me an outlet for my love, which is something that as a man you don't get a lot of opportunities for, or at least our culture doesn't really plug you into. So it's been, extremely valuable in that respect. And ultimately that's, a really remarkable experience that way.
So maybe jumping on this specific theme, we just touched into the general kinds of changes that you've noticed, maybe practical, moment to moment kinds of things. I'm wondering about the juicy kind of peak moment or peak experiences that you might have had, things that happened in your self-practice, in your partner trades, or in the weekend intensives during the practices. Were there any particular experiences that you had breakthroughs, or that you had kind of core wounds kind of connected into and understood, big insights, that kind of thing? What comes to mind when kind of bring that up?
For me, it was doing practice with another student, and just seeing the way they reacted, and how much positive feedback they were giving me about how strong I was working. That's when I thought, oh, I'm really doing this. Sorry, that it's hitting me here, but that's when I really felt, oh, I really am meant to do this. This is real.
We had a experience. It was so powerful, and during that soul retrieval experience, I saw my inner child next to me, and they were lifeless. She was lifeless, completely lifeless. And in the sit, I looked and realized my inner child was lifeless, and she just integrated into me and was me. It was really fascinating and beautiful to have that inner child brought back to me. I have shivers. I don't know how to explain it. I'm sorry. I'm lacking words, but that was a big moment for me. And there were so many more. I mean, we could talk all afternoon about how many big experiences there were, but that one comes to mind.
A recurring theme for me in the program was feeling like there was kind of a lump in the throat. And it's interesting that Sally mentioned not having words, because I think I almost compare it to tasting wine, where it's sort of like we're all having these experiences, but it's hard to put exact words on what these things are. But that one was pretty consistent for me. And I took notes on the protocols as I was doing them. And so I had something in my notes that said, it feels like a lump moving from the heart up through the throat. I don't know what that is. And we were in one of the weekends doing a group sit when it was sort of my turn to deal with an issue, and Keith was prompting me to explore something. And what intuitively popped into my mind out of nowhere that I had never even considered before was something about saying the words, "I love you." And so then I went back to the notes and I was like, oh, a lump coming from my heart to my throat. That makes a lot of sense. And so that one was just so on the nose. And it really was a big breakthrough, because afterwards I thought about it and thought, okay, this has been an issue with family members, with past romantic partners. And I had just never put that together before, and years of therapy had not brought that up. So that was a pretty major breakthrough for me.
I'll just share a quick one, because there were so many, but I think similarly, it was one of our group sits where we were asked to bring something to the center. I think it was in the EHT-100, and the imagery that I got was so profound and intense, and it had something to do with an exchange between the right side of my body and the left side of my body, as represented by these different archetypal feminine images. And they came together at the heart and exchanged and held this apple. And I just remember having such a profound feeling of connection within my heart, because I always feel the right and left sides of my body as separate, or like there's a break in between. And this was like a coming together of those two, but with these different archetypal feminine images. And it brought my heart into the center that connected the two. And that was, I just remember having some intense bliss after that one.
Thanks, Shannon, for sharing that. I can feel the heart energy as you're delving into that memory. You've been integrating energy work with your psychotherapy practice, as you mentioned at the beginning. And I wondered if you could share a little bit of how that has been for you, what that experience has been like.
You know, you can talk your head off for years, but if you're not addressing the energetic field where the thoughts, you know, what are the thoughts doing in the energetic field? And so to be able to use the energy healing with the talk therapy, the experiences I've had with clients thus far is holy cow moments for my clients that I've been working on these specific issues with for years. Like anxiety, what is the root of the anxiety, you know, with developmental trauma? And it's like, I get really excited about it because it just seems like such a no-brainer to integrate the two. It just makes sense to use it together for me. It seems to go deeper, faster in the healing process. It has really helped my clients move through things faster in a way that we couldn't just by talking ad nauseum.
Now that you've all completed the EHT training experience, how would you describe the process, the experience to someone who might be considering the training? You know, what advice might you have from the other side? Or another way of asking that as well, I guess, is what advice might you give your former self at the beginning of the training? Whichever one you'd like to answer.
I'll go. I would say jump in, completely open-minded, ready to, you know, go in with an attitude of learning, a beginner's mind, and most importantly, do the practice.
I think to talk about how would I describe the process to someone considering the training? I've tried to do this with multiple people. One recently, a psychologist actually, and she's like, "Well, what are you talking about? What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Okay." So I often use Reiki as a starting point, where it's like, okay, you know Reiki, right? Oh, yes. Okay. Well, then take that times 1,000 and then add a bunch of information and a bunch of specifics and a bunch of well-pointed tools to address very specific issues. And the process is about a sequential learning, subtlety over time, where it's like you stay with the modules and each module builds on each other. And in that building, the depth of your transformation is growing subtly over time. And you just gotta stay with it. And it's super fun and exciting. And like, who doesn't want to play in the energy field all the time? That's my idea of fun.
I might describe it as a series of meditation retreats, because each weekend was, you know, very contained. There wasn't a lot of time to do anything else. So you kind of dove in on Saturday and learned a lot and meditated a lot and got in some rest before the session on Sunday. So, you know, there was a lot of kind of that feeling of getting out of your daily life, because you were logging onto Zoom and interacting with these people that maybe were all over the world. And there's also an aspect that feels like reading the cliff notes of just a whole library of very interesting books. And I just think the curation that Keith and Christabel have done to extract the content, you get little bits of so many things, and it leads you with a lot that you can kind of go back and decide where you want to explore even further.
You know, there's something in it for everyone, whether you're a professional or a parent or a spouse. Energy is whether or not you know it, it's what your thoughts are, it's what your emotions are. And there will be something in it that you will find transformative in your own self, but also in your relationships and your work. So I would encourage people to look into it.
One thing that we hear from our trainees time and time again is the importance of community within the EHT program. It would be great to hear from you how, despite this being an online training conducted with people from all over the globe, the sense of community and connection developed between the participants throughout the course is often described to us, to Keith and I, as life-changing. And I wonder if anyone would like to talk to this idea from their direct experience.
You know, it was interesting of like, how are we going to form community when we're just like looking at little boxes on a screen and we're not really interacting during the training itself? But the dyad trades, which allowed each of us to meet twice per, in between each module or whatever. And we went really deep, really fast once we got connected through the partner trade. And so it was really cool because you just form these instant deep connections that you stay connected to the people even outside of that module experience. And it is really a community. I was surprised by how closely connected we all were, and sharing the group field was also really profound.
And plus the nature of the practice lends itself to a pretty strong connection. Like, it's not just chatting with someone, you're sharing their energy and they are sharing theirs. And once it's an immediate jump into that safe space, and knowing that there is safety in being vulnerable, and that it is a positive release and positive experience. And once that momentum starts, well, then you're off and running.
Yeah, I agree with both Paul and Shannon. It's really beautiful space. And I felt just immediately in a safe place, even though people were strangers, but very quickly became the people I trust very much in the world. And so all of the people in our classes, the 100 and the 200, I could easily sit and have the deepest, most meaningful conversations with that I wouldn't with people even in my family, I think. so it's interesting.
And I would add that the moderation from Keith and Christabel also helped a lot with creating that safe space and having the prompts into opening up vulnerably about, you just didn't know what was going to come up sometimes when you went into some of these meditations. And so just having that trust going into it, I think, helped us to go a lot deeper. And I've also stayed in touch with the people that were part of my program and continued to do those partner trades.
We've kind of come around to talking about the course in general. Everybody had their own kind of developmental lines. I know 3 out of the 4 of you have finished the 200, some of whom are going to get certified. Question is, how do you plan on taking what you've learned in the course out into the world? Are you active in developing an energy healing practice in the public, integrating it with previously existing work? Is this just for your inner practice only? Is it dovetailing into other places unforeseen? What are you doing with this in the world?
I'm really interested in exploring how I can bring it to my own communities, which are mainly entrepreneurs and creatives. And I think within those communities, there's a lot of benefit to meditation in general, as well as energy healing. And I'm excited about exploring that. And I've been looking into creating a corporate workshop, which I would call, corporate meditation, but that would bring in a lot of things I've learned through EHT, and also a writing class that uses energy healing as a way to kind of prompt creativity. So definitely exploring the different ways that I can bring together both my own creative background with the energy healing.
I am launching a practice as a worker of healing energy. I'm also a writer. I expect I'll be doing research and writing on topics related to healing using energy. In 2021, I was trained as an end-of-life doula, which sits and holds space for people who are terminally ill. And I expect that as the world opens up and as my jurisdiction allows, I will be volunteering at a local hospice, and I don't know if I'll be running energy. I can guarantee that the practices and the learnings will be informing whatever it is I do.
That's amazing. I love what both Paul and Danny are doing. I love that using energy work for the writing process. That's very cool. I started when I was in the 100s, a meditation gratitude group. It's just a meetup. It's open to anybody, free of charge. And so I use it a little bit that way. It's called Breathing Gratitude. And we meet every other Sunday in a park and just meet and do, meditation, energy work, breath work, and just commune, in positivity and offer gratitude to the universe. It's been good.
Finding ways to more formally integrate it into my strategy as a psychotherapist, but moving more towards having that be my primary client focus, where it's a hybrid of talking, but then having an energy healing part of the session, and then who knows where it will go from there. But more to me is forming community as well. I live in Los Angeles, so there's, to me, a great need for more intentional heart-based communities, and offering some energy healing work with some maybe ceremony or ritual-based experiences where people can come together and have a really intentional, beautiful, deep experience, and with energy healing as part of that ritual. That's one of my ideas for the future that will be up and coming that I want to offer.
Well, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate all of you participating. Many people listening will be both inspired and enriched by your personal stories, and also what you shared to inform others about your experience with the EHT program. And of course, that program can't exist without you. So we thank you so much for joining us today, and of course for being Field Dynamics community. So thank you all.
Pleasure to connect.
Thanks for listening. You can find us at fielddynamicshealing.com.